Hello and welcome to In-Home Garage. I'm your host, Kason, and today we're going to be taking off the front sprocket, the rear sprocket, and the chain. Just going to show you how to take it off because I don't have the parts to put anything back on. So when I get the parts, I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of the video. But I need to get these wheels off to get them to powder coat, and one of the things I'm replacing this year is the front sprocket, the rear sprocket, and the chain itself. Now, I'm not changing any numbers on those. I'm going to be going with the 16 tooth in front and the 42 in rear from the factory setting just because, I don't know, I like it. I don't mind it. It's fine. A lot of people have been telling me to go up in the rear, down in the front, whatever. I've heard a lot of issues. I don't want issues, and heck, at the end of the day, I need to be a better rider before I start really changing the gearing. So to do this, you're going to first need to remove your chain guard. Now this one is not the factory one, so this is actually a Vanchi Motorsports edition one. I actually replaced this when I did the Cumpan dash because I had to take it off anyway, and why not spend an extra $100 for something that's orange and looks cool, and well, is actually metal and not plastic like they come from the factory. So go ahead and remove those 3 bolts to remove this so you can get to that main nut. That's a fun sound. Wow, that sounds scary. Oh God, look at how much crap that has. Oi. Now, since that guard has been removed, what you're going to want to do is you're going to notice that there's a washer in here that's actually crushed onto what looks like the hub. I'm going to do my best to crush that back into place before I remove this nut. Now from the factory, they do this just for safety protocol so that nothing kind of comes loose or kind of, does its thing. But I don't know how I'm going to do this. Here we go. Now you can see that lip is crushed out of the way. Obviously there's that paint mark from the factory just to make sure it's crushed in place correctly, but I have since removed that. So now it comes down to getting this nut actually loose. Now, if you own a KTM 690, or I'm assuming anything with an LC4, I know my buddy with the 690 Duke,
it's like the same thing, but not.
He had this issue where there's a seal behind here that will tend to leak oil if this nut and assembly is either too loose or too tight, or your chain's too tight, or a whole bunch of things can go wrong with it. So this is a very important stuff to be careful on, which I probably won't be that careful on, and hopefully learn from my mistakes. So the first thing you want to do is, one, put it in gear. Go. Now that we're in gear, I've seen people on the internet take rubber hammers and wedge them between the tire and the rear mud guard or swing arm or that area to hold this wheel in place. That's plan B. Plan A should be have somebody on the other side hold your rear brake to lock that wheel into place. Even better, plan A.1 or point 2 should be to leave the rear wheel on the ground. And if you've noticed, I've done none of that. So, let's try it. Okay. Should be able to just, we'll just go like that. That should be just fine, right? Yeah. I don't see any issue. There maybe will be. Well, let's see. All right, with my big breaker bar, bike in gear, rubber mallet in place. Away we go. Oh, that sounds fun. Oh yeah, you're not that strong, come on, bro. And there we go. That nut is off. Now I forgot to mention, or I might have mentioned, I don't know, you're gonna need a 27mm socket to get this specific bolt off. Now, you can use the same 27mm socket that you use for the nut on the front wheel, which is kind of cool and nice. But now that this is off, I don't have any worry about taking the rest of the driveline components off to get these wheels powder coated. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and pick a link to then remove the chain. Now, I've never done this before, so I don't know what I'm doing. I bought a tool for it. We'll see. And that tool that I ended up buying provided me no initial help, but what did help was a grinder. And this is something that I learned that you actually will probably need, depending on your chain, to take it off. I don't know if this is exactly the right way to do it, but honestly, it works really, really well. And I think you'll see how it ends up. Oh, P.S. Don't do it in your house. You throw a lot of metal and shards and sparks and stuff everywhere, so don't burn your house down. Let's see how loud this is. I'm gonna put gloves on. No. Sometimes.
Gotta show it to the boss a little more now.
Nothing like grinding away at a chain in your house. I know from the footage you really can't see exactly what I'm grinding, so I'm gonna try to show you now. So this is the factory chain, and you're gonna notice on all these different ridges, these little metal, how do I describe them, kind of bumps, nipples. Usually if you have a dirt bike chain, you're gonna have a master link, where it's just going to be kind of like a clip on, where all you have to do is take a flathead screwdriver and a hammer and pound that clip off. But this is the first time I've ever done a street chain, and I didn't find one of those master link things. And searching the internet, you start to realize that these things move a lot faster and consistent and are much bigger than a dirt bike chain. So it's kind of important, yeah, to take that into note. So all you're basically going to do is take the grinder, grind off one of these heads wherever you find it, and then you're going to use your chain brake tool. Now, I went to Cycle Gear and again found this one for about 40 bucks on sale. And it's a really cool tool that you'll probably use maybe 3 or 4 times in your lifetime, depending on how many bikes you have, but it's actually really important to have. And this is something that I probably wouldn't go cheap on because of 2 reasons. One, most likely if you go cheap, it's probably gonna break or break whatever you're trying to fix. So just don't do it, and you're investing in the long term. But number 2 is you gotta remember, you gotta put on a new chain. And when you put on a new chain, you don't wanna just be using some $15 piece of crap, especially at the price of these new chains. I mean, looking at it, a new DID 520 pitch VXR gold chain is costing me close to $200. $15 tool to work on a $200 chain? No. I'd rather buy something a little bit better and built to work on these things. So it's pretty simple. Once you have that nub ground off, you basically find the right size to punch through that hole and apply it to the tool and punch it through. Pretty simple. And then obviously, once the chain's off, you can remove that drive sprocket. This is going to be 16 teeth, and you're gonna notice the rubber on the inside and outside of it. Now this is considered a dampened front drive sprocket. They have dampened and non-dampened. I reordered the exact same one. Just remember the seal issue that I told you about earlier? That's something I want to avoid. And it looks like the dampened ones being thick enough, press against that seal correctly, and do the right job. Now again, I could be wrong. The internet is a vast world, and there's probably much better people and information out there to then learn about these drive sprockets and if you should buy dampened or non-dampened. But I'm sticking to the factory. And you honestly don't really notice a difference if there's a color in there or whatnot. Whatever, I'm not changing the number of teeth. It is what it is. Fight me in the comments. But while you have that factory chain off, I think one of the most important things to do is count how many links there are. And that's not this whole section as a link, it's each single rod that you're gonna find throughout. So for a KTM 690, 2021 at least, coming off of my bike, there's 116. Now remember when I alluded to the tool earlier and how you want to buy a nice one? Since this is 116 links, I'm going to have to cut down a 120 link chain because they only really sell them in like 110, 114, 118, 120, at least for what I found. So I'm going to need to remove bits of that new chain to actually put that back on the bike at the right size. So double check, triple check, learn how to count and recount every single link on your chain just to be sure. Now I know I don't have the new chain and sprockets yet, but once those come in, I'll do a full video of how to actually install those. But I think this is a pretty good first time learner's guide to removing your sprockets and your chain. A few things to be mindful of, and honestly, it was fun to do. It's really interesting when I start doing these things on a bike that I've got no clue how to do. I've had a lot of help from a lot of my friends, from people I've called, from a lot of you who have actually commented and helped me out in this process, so I thank you for that. And if you want to learn more, or at least watch me try to learn more of how to work on this KTM 690 or any motorcycle, stay tuned. And just like that, with the winter still among us here in Chicago, I encourage you to always keep riding. Of the new think. Come on, let's go. Here we go. In a 3 and a 2, 1.